霊光は絶えず流れ続ける。私の名はアズサ。その木のように強くあるようにと名付けられました。鶴屋の娘として故郷のサンガを守ります。この力、戦いに使いたくはありませんが、責任が重くても逃げるわけには参りません。私は私のやり方でこの争いを止めてみせます。鶴屋の大地のために。尊者の威厳は我が力。おぼろ、ごめんなさい。死闘の惨劇のための神殿に閉じ込められることになってしまうなんて。
霊力が満ち溢れ、万物がよみがえる。物に霊則は宿り、竜が万国を支配する。僕は簡単には屈しない。霊力が集まり始めた。物霊の玉の力はもう止められない。僕はオボロ。君も僕と一緒に雲の上を泳ぎたいかい？
Hey everyone, we're back again.
Howdy.
And you guys might hear some a little bit of difference in sound quality here because thanks to the generous donations from our patrons, we are able to upgrade our show a bit, and we have gotten Frontier a shiny new microphone.
It is very shiny.
Hopefully you guys will hear a significant quality difference from him now, because before we were using stuff we found in our garages and stuff. So thanks to people who support us. It's really cool of you guys to do that.
Thank you very much.
So this time we want to talk about Azusa and Oboro. I think this video is going to be a lot shorter because this particular patch is actually pretty bare bones in terms of new stuff, and it's kind of been like that the last couple months on China. Although like this most recent patch, while we're talking right now, like the one with roast ham and what is it, Ashamel or whatever. That one actually has a new PvE mode, but we'll get to that, I guess, in a bit, or in a few shows, I guess. But right now, we're going to talk about Azusa and Oboro. And starting with this patch, they seem to have shifted their focus a lot into more original characters. We haven't seen a Langrisser character for 3 months now, so the last 3 patches on China have all been OC Donut steals. And it starts with this one, and this patch, of course, these 2 characters are the first Act 3 original characters that they've created. I mean, I know you can argue that, like Old Ares and like Old Licorice and all those characters are Book 3 Book 3 characters as well, but these are kind of the first original ones we're getting. Aside from Lisa, I mean, I guess Lisa counts. So these 2 characters are from, I guess, the first area you go to, which is, Tsuruya. And I've had a few people ask me, or I've seen a few people discuss it, and they were wondering, hey, is Tsuruya supposed to be like a Chinese themed area or a Japanese themed area? And the answer to that question is yes, because it's kind of both. So if you look at Azusa, she kind of has this like the martial artist sort of thing going on, but she does have some like Japanese flavor to her. And Oboro, even though he changes into a Chinese dragon, he does have a lot of he also has some like Japanese elements to him. And the character that comes the month after this, which is Kaguya, like she's definitely Japanese themed. So Tsuruya is like, it's basically their generic Asian area. It has both like Chinese and Japanese features to it. As for these 2 characters, first thing I noticed is that they are both Origins characters, and they're actually adding quite a few Origins characters the last couple of months. Probably because they want to buff Origins, which is completely justified because Origins, I think, is one of the weaker factions.
Yeah.
So we start off with these 2, which is Azusa and Oboro. Both of them are Origins, so I guess we can just jump into it here. We have Azusa, and in addition to Origins, she is also Strategic Masters, which is another severely underpowered faction, I would say. Even the only reason Strategic Masters is kind of buoyed up is because it's paired with Empire a lot, and Empire is really busted, but Strategic Masters specifically has some issues, and she's also mythical. Mythical is kind of in this weird place where it's the units in mythical are all pretty strong, but it does have some trouble with faction buffs. Gizeroff is not used very much anymore. He's still okay. I've used like Gizeroff occasionally, and Old Landius, the problem with Old Landius is that he's still decent. You know, he's kind of like an off healer, and his terrain can be very limiting if your opponent is using lots and lots of high movement units. But the problem, of course, is that they've added a fair number of infantry movement units that they just ignore Old Landius, of course. And what was the other thing? Oh, right, you have units like Helena who just blow up all his tiles, so it's just kind of it makes it harder to play Old Landius. I think Old Landius is still pretty good, but yeah, just running off of only one mythical buff can be kind of difficult. So anyway, we have Azusa here. She is a dual attack intelligence character, so another one of these. Was it Clotaire, Akaya, and who else was there? Like, I guess Sonya sort of counts. So we've had a couple mixed characters before. Azusa is a lot more straightforward because you don't need to enchant a bunch of attack and intelligence equipment for her. You just need to enchant attack because she just straight up replaces her intelligence with her attack. So she doesn't you don't need to like go for the she won't end up with like a very frail equipment set, basically, because a lot of times when you try to enchant for both attack and intelligence, you'll end up with really bad HP, and you have to use Twilight Star, which also makes you very frail as well. You can still use Twilight Star on her and she'll be able to use it quite well, but you don't have to. So basically, she is this dual damage character, and I guess her biggest gimmick is this shield that she gets in her talent. So this shield, she gets at the start of a battle, and she can refresh it using something I'll talk about in a second. So first of all, this shield gives her move +3. She is a 3-move unit, so she'll have 6 move. And the shield will wear off after you are attacked one time. So what it does is that it forces the opponent to use their weaker attack stat to hit her. So if you are a physical attacker, she will force you to do a magic attack on her, and if you're a mage, she will force you to do a physical attack. So basically, I mean, for most units, this basically means you'll do like 5 damage to her or something.
Yeah, I was gonna say like that's pretty much she's gonna not die.
Okay, so there's a couple weaknesses with this. Obviously, enemy Azusas and
yes, I have
enemy Azusas, Clotairs, Akkas. Who else? Like, I guess Sonya, sorta.
Yes, I have any of Azusas would.
Yeah, like units like that who have attack and intelligence like her, they will break. I won't say they'll necessarily ignore the shield, because oftentimes when you build those units, you'll still have one that's higher than the other. But unless it's a very specific unit, she will probably survive. There is like a weird, I don't know if it's a glitch, but there's this thing where Werner, like if he uses his double attack, he just kills her anyway. So if I think it was like the first attack it triggered the shield, and then the second attack it didn't trigger the shield, so it went through the shield on the second attack. So I don't know if this is a glitch or if this is intended, but it appears that double attacks actually break the shield and then kill her anyway.
So Ledin?
Yes, Ledin would count as well. I think so. So I don't know. I don't know if that's changed, because I don't know if that was a bug or anything. I don't think I've read anything in their patch notes that said that was not intentional. But I would need to go check like their playoffs again or something to see if this was something they intended. But yeah, like that is something worth noting. In the current meta, the most notable double attacker is Werner.
Okay.
So most replays I've seen, he just straight up kills her. So it's just kind of a weird quirk to it. So the final part of this town is basically explaining how you refresh this shield. So basically, every time she uses a physical attack, she will get a certain buff, and when she uses a magic attack, she will get a different buff. So if at the end of her turn she has both of these, she will consume them, restore some HP, and then gain the shield again. So basically, they're encouraging you to use both physical and magical attacks on her. It's like she's balancing her chi or something, and then she'll regain the shield. And that's really it in terms of the unique aspects of her, because the rest of her kit is really just a lot of it's just single target skills, right? It's like it's a bunch of physical attacks, a bunch of magical attacks, and her 3C and her most standard 2C that she's going to bring, they are selection skills that you can choose either a physical or a magical attack. So you don't really need to worry about like, oh, I don't know if I should bring physical or magical, because the skills she was given have both anyway. And they're also both 2-range attacks, so that's also nice, so she can pick her range. For her 1C, I think you would usually use Faith. Mainly, like, Faith increases her damage, which is really nice. And I guess it also lets her heal a little bit, which is... she does have, like, a 1C attack, but I don't think it's really necessary to bring at all. So if you defeat an enemy with her 3C, it will have its cooldown reduced by 3. It is a 4 cooldown skill. And her 2C skill actually only has a 1-turn cooldown, so her skills come up very, very quickly. So if you kill units with her 3C, she basically can just constantly skill over and over, because the 4 cooldown gets reduced to 1, and then the other attack is also 1 cooldown, so you can just switch between the two over and over. So you wouldn't need like another attack skill if you just use these two. And in PvP, even if you missed a kill, it's like I don't think it's that big a deal, because you only have 5 enemies to deal with in PvP typically. I guess the only limitation I see is that she's not a guard piercer. It's 35% attack on her soldier bonus. Her talent is 20% attack, which actually isn't that much when you think about it. Like, that's actually not that much. Compared to some of the other crazy DPSs we have, because when you think of crazy DPSs, it's actually not only is it damage dealt increase, but it's actually 30%. So she only gets 20% on her attack on her talent, and you get 15% damage from Faith if you bring that. Her 3C is 1.7 times damage, and I believe it's it dispels 3 buffs. It converts 3 buffs into debuffs, which can be very strong. But you're kind of playing with RNG there, and you get to choose between physical and magical, so there is that. So, like for example, if you're fighting Landius, you can just like go into melee range and attack with magic or something.
Yeah.
So when you're running Faith on her, I don't think she's significantly worse than a lot of tank busters we already have. Like Lucretia, Yulia, Elwyn. Those units have 30% damage, and Waitam has 15% damage and 15% attack. So Azusa has 20% attack and 15% damage from Faith. So it's actually not that much worse when you consider her entire loadout. You can argue that maybe her 3C is weaker than things like Annihilation from Waitam, or things like Elwyn's 3C. But like I mentioned, there is some randomness to Azusa's 3C, where you might manage to get some really good debuffs and then lower their defense or lower their magic defense or increase their damage taken. And that would probably push her damage actually above a lot of those tank busters. Also depending on what you dispel, of course. And even if you fail the tank bust, her 3C does have a cannot guard built into it, which is like the smash debuff. So it is a guard disable that is not affected by Overlord badge or Hilda's 3C passive. So it's a nice fallback, and just like so many other DPS, she does rely on you banning Rosen if you want to take full advantage of all these fancy effects she has. If you are using physical damage soldiers, she will actually convert them into magical damage. So personally, I think it's better to use physical damage soldiers on her. A lot of people will kind of think that Fighting Monk is kind of... I guess like Fighting Monk makes the most sense for her in the sense, in like thematically, because the Fighting Monk is like a Tsuruya troop in the game's universe. But because she can convert physical damage dealt by soldiers into magic and not the other way around, I think I would prefer using physical soldiers on her the majority of the time, because that way you get to choose like, am I doing pure physical or pure magical damage?
You're right.
And she has like a pretty typical holy soldier choice, which is the zealot. Zealots are, they're okay, but she also gets Heaven's Guard, which are, Heaven's Guard are, they're okay. Like there's like better cav troops or more reliable cav troops. It's kind of annoying to use Heaven's Guard sometimes, but Heaven's Guards are very strong if you can get the move in. And she also has State Guard and Amazon Champion, so she has good Lancer choices as well. Basically, the only thing she's missing is a strong infantry choice, I would say. And she herself is a holy class, and she has okay move range. She, +3 move from her shield, so she'll have 8 range, 6 move plus 2 range on her attack. So I think she works best in a more aggressive game, which to be fair is a lot of what we play nowadays. Any thoughts here?
I do like her design. It's really cool.
Yeah.
I would. It would be kind of sad, when you don't use the fighting monks on her. Kind of feel weird, like who. I do like her gimmick, and unless you have Warner, you might have some trouble.
As far as her popularity goes, I think out of these two characters, obviously Azusa is the one people will be pulling for in terms of waifu factor. I guess like Oboro. I don't think Oboro is anybody's waifu, as far as I know, at least. The only thing I wanted to point out is her bonds. Like, her bonds are pretty bad. Her defense bond is Console of the Moon, and her attack bond is Oboro. So,
yeah,
we have 2 units here who are both pretty. I would say pretty. Not completely niche, but like not characters that everybody's gonna pull for, and that's pretty rough. So if you want to use Azusa, you kind of like have some pretty tough choices to make here. At least with Oboro, you might get him at the same time as pulling for Azusa. So there is that. Yeah, I don't think I have a lot else to say about Azusa. She is good with a couple flaws. Physical and magical. I think she is also pretty good in PvE. Like, she does fine in PvE because of her low cooldowns. And some people were disappointed that she's attack converted into intelligence rather than the earlier round, because some people were saying, like, oh, I kind of wish I could use Gift of Eternal Life on her to make her a healer. The one thing I noticed about that is that I think there are 2 reasons they made it attack to intelligence rather than intelligence to attack. First, an attack boost makes it so that she also gives the talent to her soldiers, because soldiers don't have intelligence. The second,
oh, you're right.
Yeah, that's been a thing since the start of the game. That's one of the reasons why like intelligence talents, like the one on like Hein or Noemi or characters like that, have always been kind of like it's been lackluster compared to an attack boosting talent or a damage boosting talent, because attack and damage apply to soldiers and intelligence talents do not. It's just one of those weird quirks of the game. But the other reason I would say is that she can use the new hammer, like the bone smasher hammer or whatever, the one that breaks armors. I think that's a pretty big deal. I mentioned earlier that you don't have to use magic against the opponent if they're using Tiamat armor, but if you're using that hammer, then it doesn't matter anyway, because you'll break their armor.
Yeah.
So, yeah. Next one is Oboro. And Oboro is definitely the one I think we're going to have a lot more to say about, because Oboro is very, very strange. This is one of the most unique characters they've ever added to the game.
Oboro.
Yeah, so he is Origins, Legend, and Mythical. Origins and Legend is a very strange pairing.
That's a strange combination. What's mystical? I guess because
Mythical is okay. Like, Mythical pairs well with a lot of factions, but Origins and Legend is a pretty bad combination, because like I don't think there's like any crossover between those two up until now. So that is, I don't want to say that's a problem, because I think his factions are okay. So anyway, I don't even know where to start with Oboro. I think we should just start with his transform skill, because that's basically the basis of his entire playstyle. So okay, so let's just jump to his transform skill here. Okay. So his transform skill is called Focus Elements. So when he uses the skill, he will be stuck in place. He can't attack, he can't move, he can't be displaced, and he can't use any skills aside from Dracomorph, which is what this skill turns into after you use it. So after you use the skill, he basically just gets rooted in place. He can't do anything except for end his turn or use Dracomorph. So every turn you end, each time you end turn with him, he will restore 20% HP and gain 1 stack of Dragon Might, which gives him +1 move and +7% attack defense and magic defense. So that means you can stack up to +4 move and +28% to attack defense and magic defense from stacking this. So
that's cool.
And then as he stacks Dragon Might, he will get also unique bonuses. And I believe he gets these in order. Like it's not like randomly from these 4, but rather in this specific order. So the first one he gets is after attacking, restore 25% of damage dealt at HP. So similar to basically like Sun Slash built into all his attacks. Unit range +2, which applies to everything, and not just his normal attack. So all his skills get +2 as well.
Okay.
So third one is immunity, so immune to all debuffs. And then the fourth one is damage dealt +15% and ignore guard. So
I don't like this guy now.
So this guy is like a Dragon Ball Z character. So he has to sit there and charge up for 4 turns straight, and he just gets stronger and stronger, and then he just goes nuts. So once you decide to end this charge up period and use Dracomorph, he will teleport. I forgot the distance of the teleport. I believe it was either 5 or 7. I forgot it was 5 or 7 spaces, but you do teleport. It removes focus elements, of course, and then it blows up all his soldiers. And then he gains hero max HP plus 30%. He restores 50% HP after that. And then he will also attack twice in battle. Now, this attack twice applies to everything, including his skills. So basically like Rio, where he can skill twice. So soldier max HP is reduced by 90% and cannot be healed. So some people might find this kind of strange. So because it's like, I can't heal my soldiers, why would they reduce the max HP by 90%? This doesn't make sense to me. So basically, this is here so that you can't abuse last rites and stuff like that. Yeah, that's basically it. That's it's here so you can't abuse last rites, and it's also so that you can't abuse what do you call it? Flower Boon Bonnet, because
you're right. Yeah, the healing one.
So I think that's kind of self-explanatory. So because his soldier max HP is reduced by 90%, so once he transforms, he'll have a bunch of extra HP, but his life bar will be like 95% or something, right? Because he technically still has 10% soldier HP. It's just that he can't heal them. Okay, so and his movement type changes to flying, so he will start flying. And then after he transforms, he can actually act again. With movement equal to the number of saved Dragon Might stacks, so up to 4 move after you teleport. So, which is pretty large movement range actually, because you teleport and then you can move 4 if you've charged up all the way. So yeah, okay, so he has other stuff in his kit, but this is like the majority of his kit right here. This is the basic idea behind the character, which is basically you sit in one place and charging up your laser, and then 4 turns later he will be really crazy, very, very strong. He will have no soldiers, and basically every attack he does will be like a Zerda, like Bloodthirster attack, essentially. Because you got 28% attack from the Dragon Might stacks. You have 15% damage, and you ignore guard, and you attack twice. Now, the attacking twice isn't as strong as it might sound at first, just because he doesn't have soldiers anymore. And so in a way, he's kind of making up for the fact that he has no soldiers, but also remember that he has damage dealt plus 20% in his talent. So from his talent plus this transform, he will have 35% attack, a guard pierce, he will attack twice, and he will plus 28% attack. And then his 3C, we can move to his 3C now. His 3C will actually make him even stronger. So his 3C has a passive on it that says for every stack of Dragon Might he has, the talent death trigger, we'll talk about that in a second, it increases talent death trigger damage. And it also says that if he attacks without soldiers, hero damage dealt plus 15%. So that means you'll get another plus 60% damage if you have 4 stacks of Dragon Might. So that's a total of plus 95% damage with 28% attack and attacking twice. And you can apply it to a skill. So, yeah.
I am flabbergasted.
So this guy is real. Like, I mean, obviously the big limitation here is that you have to sit there for 4 turns and wait a long time, because 4 turns is a really long time in a PvP match nowadays.
Yeah, like it's probably like halfway over.
Yeah, yes. But if you can get those turns, like he's he just goes Super Saiyan and he's pretty strong. Now I will say, like, okay, we can move back to his talent for a second, because I want to talk about something. Because okay, so when he has no soldiers, the first part of his talent says when he has no soldiers, he will cause the enemy soldiers to deal 90% reduced damage, and he will also have a HP shield. So this HP shield, like, you'll get it when you first transform, right? Because when you first transform, you'll lose all your soldiers, so you'll immediately get the shield at that point. But this reduced enemy soldier damage. So basically, this is to make up for the fact that he has no soldiers. The enemy soldiers will basically deal almost no damage to him. Heroes with damage increase on their talent or whatever, they will start doing more damage to him via soldiers. So he is not as tanky as this might suggest. So depending on how much damage dealt increase you have on a soldier, you might be able to break through Oboro's damage reduction here, and the soldiers will do enough damage for your hero to be able to finish Oboro off. Because as you can see, Oboro does not reduce damage from the opponent's hero. He's still decently tanky though. Really depends on what you're doing with him. I've seen replays where he has like 1500 defense or something, which obviously will make it very hard to kill him, especially if he's sitting on terrain. And this is on top of his large HP pool after he's done transforming. You know, some people I've been talking to, they were thinking like, okay, they might actually build him with like a blood pact as his accessory, just to make this shield thicker, because they kind of figured like, well, he's doing so much damage anyway, you don't really need an offensive accessory necessarily, so you might find more value out of a blood pact or something. So I think that's an interesting way of thinking about it. Like I think that might be a thing. you could think about doing that. And his armor, because he can't use last rites, or like you wouldn't want to use last rites rather. I mean, you can use last rites, but basically if you use last rites on him, it would be to protect him while he's in his like transforming stage, or he's in his like standing still stage, because at that point he still has his soldiers, and you're trying to protect him while he's vulnerable. But if you want him to have a thicker shield, then you would probably use like Demon Lizard Skin or Azure Legend as his armor instead. So you have a couple options here in terms of his equipment. Let's see here. Oh yeah, so the last thing I want to say about his tankiness is that some people were thinking about, oh, would he be good in PvE? Like in certain fights where if it lasts longer, would you be able to, like, because if you take up the 4 turns to transform him, but the fight is like 30,
or ancient, whatever it's called.
Well, if it's like Ancient Beckoning, it's like 99 turns long. Is it like, it's not that big a deal, right? But the one thing I would say about that is that because he only affects enemy soldier damage, bosses don't have soldiers. Bosses just attack like 40 times or whatever using the hero, so they'll probably just kill Oboro.
Take 4 turns to get strong, dies one hit. Yeah.
So unfortunately, even though it would have been fun to think about that, I think because of the way they designed him, he will not be good in PvE, unfortunately. So it's kind of sad. I kind of wish they did something different there, but yeah, I think he is a very PvP focused character here. Okay, and the last thing we have to talk about is this on death damage he does. Okay, so last part of his talent says when he dies, he will deal at 6 stars 0.5 times AoE damage to the source of the damage, and then permanently inflict damage taken plus 20%. Now, this damage taken plus 20%, I don't think is really, like, I mean, it's useful, but in a lot of games I've seen, like, when he dies, that 0.5 AoE damage just straight up kills them. So it really doesn't, like, the second part is like, it's just like I guess you could say it's like insurance. Because this first part is 0.5 times AoE damage, which doesn't sound like it's enough to kill somebody until you realize that he has 15% damage from his transform. You got to remember his 20% damage from his talent and his 60% damage from his passive do not apply to this because those are in battle. This is like a map attack, so those don't count. But the passive does have talent death trigger damage plus 25% for every stack of Dragonite, so you can get 100% from that, from 4 stacks, so you get 115% damage on top of 0.5 times AoE damage. So basically, it's like doing a direct attack to the enemy hero when you really break it down. Because, well, 0.5 AoE damage, and then you increase by 100%, and a little bit more than 100% actually, but basically that's like Oboro doing a direct attack on the hero.
Okay.
Yeah, so like one direct attack, so like, what is it, 10 hits? What is it? No, 20 hits rather. Like, it's 20 hits. So for a lot of units, this will just kill them. Because, especially if it's like, especially right now, because like there's a fair number of frail units running around. Like mages who try to kill Oboro will probably get killed by this.
I figured as much, why I have to take 4 turns from just to go.
I believe he has like a couple AoEs as well. Alright, he has Dragon's Breath, and then his 3C actually does have an AoE component to it, where it does a single target attack and then it does an AoE afterwards. So he can go AoE if you want him to. Although I don't know if you would want to, because his biggest strength is going in single target, but it is an option if you want to.
Okay.
Okay, some other details to him. So Dragon Slayer Graham is like the only dragon killer thing in the game, but I don't think that many units actually use it anymore. That's really nice for Oboro. He won't have to worry about too many class disadvantages, except for like some very rare instances where somebody's using a Dragon Slayer.
Okay, yeah. Do you have a picture of what he looks like when he turns into his dragon form?
Wait, let me. Actually, I do. So yeah, it's pretty cool. Like
Dude, he's just really cool. I can't wait to see what people can do with him.
I would say Oboro's biggest problem is just very aggressive play. If you play very aggressively, you can just reach Oboro and try to kill him before he does anything. And so compare that to like Omega, which I just mentioned, because Omega, the thing with Omega is that if you understand how he works, you can sort of hard counter him either by knowing your opponent is going to use Omega, so you just enchant skills on your units, or you just try to like play keep away as much as you can. So I would say Oboro's kind of similar in that way, where he's really good as a surprise pick, and I think that's why he doesn't place like super high on tier list, because he's one of those weird characters that is you might see him in a couple games and he'll be like really useful, but then sometimes he'll just get hard countered and he won't be able to do that much. I think that's kind of where Oboro is. But with both Azusa and Oboro, I would say they don't have exclusives yet, so we do have to wait for that.
Okay.
But I think as is, they're already pretty good. So speaking of exclusives, I guess we can talk about those. We got Hilda and Towa. So I gotta say, like, these are two of the last couple exclusives. I would say from Chinese server, I would say they've been pretty lame. So first I got Hilda here. So Hilda's armor. So first it says ignore skill cost limit, so like Juggler's Helm basically, and then the rest of it is basically her War Goddess skill. So disables the opponent's weapon, and then if it's an NPC, it will instead do attack minus 25%. So basically, this is freeing up one of Hilda's skill slots to place another 2C skill. I don't know how useful that is, because a lot of times people were using the broken arrow skill or whatever, which to reduce range damage. But even if you're not using that, so typically you would use her faction buff plus her 3C. So now the big difference is I can bring another 2C skill, and the thing is that Hilda's 2C choices are like, they're not bad. Like, okay, she has a couple attack skills. She has Heavy Shield, which is very good. Heavy Shield is very strong. And finally, you have the Dominating Formation skill, which can be very good. because the terrain is actually very useful for stopping a lot of very annoying Actigen units. Like it can annoy Sherry and stuff. So this is an okay armor. The biggest problem I have with this armor is that it comes in the wake of the new Tiamat's armor, which I think is way better for Hilda, because Hilda does have some trouble tanking magic sometimes, and the Tiamat's armor just helps with that so much. And I don't know if it's actually worth giving that up in exchange for heavy shield or this terrain skill. Especially because Hilda, because she can change her class, she can kind of abuse the Tiamat's armor way more than a lot of other tanks can. Because sometimes other tanks are like, I don't know if I want to, like, they're not sure if they can run mixed troop all the time. But with Hilda, that's not really a problem. She can always be a mixed troop as long as she changes her class to the right one. So, so yeah, that's kind of my take on this armor. Like, it's not bad or anything. I just feel like it's just really disappointing.
I'm still getting my Hilda to 6 stars. She's a 5-star right now, so I'm still seeing what she can do and that stuff, because I got very unlucky with those other banners. But at the same time, yeah, you already said it. It just replaces the 2C cost, but then you can do it. I mean, if you get it, can you do some cool stuff? I mean, yeah, definitely. Just gives more versatility, but I mean, that's the entire point of, you know, the exclusive gear. So, but, you know, it's just okay.
Yeah, my biggest problem with this armor isn't that it's bad. It's more just like they've released other armors that are just seem better. Let me see here. Yeah, and like half the time you want to bring the broken arrow skill on her anyway, which is the one seed that reduces range damage. So it's not even really opening up that many options, I feel like. I will say that because this does have the War Goddess skill folded into it, you don't have to bring both 1Cs, I guess. Like, you will have like both. You technically have both 1Cs, and you can still have the faction buff and the 3C. So there is that. Although this is missing one big part of the War Goddess skill, which is that it does not have the attack plus 15% that War Goddess has, which is actually kind of a big deal, because first of all, it gives her a little bit extra defensive magic defense, which is nice, but it also patches up one of Hilda's biggest weaknesses, which is that Hilda does very little damage. So if she can get 15% attack from a passive, like, you know, to both her troops and herself, like, that's kind of a big deal. And missing out on that, it just makes her even more passive, which I don't think is actually that big of an improvement.
Yeah, because eventually you get to like the last 2 rounds of Apex, and she can't die, but she can't deal damage.
Yeah, I don't like this armor. It's nice if you don't. I mean, obviously, like, the Tiamat's armor, like, not everybody's gonna get like a ton of them, because it is going to be a very rare drop, and for non-whales, you're not gonna be drowning in them unless you're really lucky. So it is still a choice. Although I don't know. So even if you don't have Tiamat's armor, I don't know how much better this is than like Forbidden Defender's armor. You know, like that. That's another comparison to make, which is Forbidden Defenders or even Aeolus armor. Yeah, I don't like this armor very much at all. It's okay.
Okay.
So next one is Towa's Helm. Again, I find this very disappointing. So what this does is, okay, so if this unit has a special effect from a faction buff, she will do 10% damage when attacking, and if the opponent does not have a faction buff while she's attacking, she will inflict attack minus 15% for 1 turn. So I got a couple. I have a couple questions. Extra damage is nice, but why did they not improve on her most unique aspects, which is her buff manipulation? Because that's really one of the big things about Towa, right? Her being able to pass buffs around, and her like having this aura. Like, they didn't improve on either one of those. I would have thought that if they were going to give her an exclusive, it would have been one of those two. Instead, they gave her this damage increase, which is like, it's nice, but I don't understand why they chose this to be what she gets a bonus on. Also, this also inflicts attack minus 15% while attacking, which is dumb, because like that doesn't even help Towa in terms of, because Towa is kind of tanky physically, so if this was attack minus 15% when entering battle no matter what, then like, okay, yeah, that's kind of useful, but it's like it just makes her take less damage while attacking, which is like, what? what are you doing, Zalone? Like, I don't understand.
Part of
this helm, yeah, like this helm, when you compare it to the other choices she has, like if you're using like infantry Towa, you can pass the Tears helm buff to other people. If you are using flyer Towa, you can just like, you can just bring Keen's Crown. Like most people who throw Towa into their box have her as like kind of a utility character with side DPS. I don't understand why they decided to improve the DPS part of that instead of the utility part, because that's the main reason you're using her. That's the most interesting part of her. So I think it's like, this is a really big disappointment to me. It's not like a terrible exclusive or anything. Increasing her damage delta is still nice, but I don't think it's worth wasting your controllers on this when you can just use like Keen's Crown and continue with her support function, or even Tears Helm, of course. Like Tears Helm, like even if you don't pass the Tears Helm buff around, that gives you 10% skill damage. So like it's not really that much worse.
No, I'm just confused on both of these exclusives. It's like, why?
Yeah, like, yeah, I don't understand. Like, it's like neither one of these, like I said, neither one of these is like terrible or anything. It's just like, why are they even wasting their time making exclusive like this when, like, I would actually rather they have a few months where they don't give us exclusives and for them to actually take their time, or at least like maybe, or at least like observe the meta and be like, okay, maybe there's like nobody who really needs an exclusive right now. Like, I actually wouldn't even mind if they spent a couple months where they just don't give us exclusives, and then instead just release the exclusive when they think it's necessary. I don't know who there is left who doesn't have an exclusive that like desperately needs one. I'm trying to think right now. I mean, I guess they could do like crossover exclusive, but
that'd be an entire new thing.
I mean, obviously the R characters could use exclusives. That is a thing. Oh, Clotaire still doesn't have a unique.
Oh, okay.
So there's one. Elma doesn't have a unique. I mean, Elma is relatively new, but I mean, I think I would have given one to Elma over something like this. Like, I think you probably could have thought of something to give to Elma. Okay, Liana still doesn't have an exclusive.
Oh, you're right.
I mean, Liana doesn't really need that much help, but neither does Hilda. So, well, Rosen doesn't have an exclusive, but she doesn't really need one that badly. Saintess of the Ark doesn't have an exclusive, and she's pretty bad, so I guess that is a thing. Tiaris doesn't have an exclusive, so but Tiaris doesn't need that much help.
Yeah, I mean, to me,
kind of
her exclusive is that one plushie.
Yeah, technically, yes. Yeah, I guess that's it. Like, there's actually not that many units without an exclusive that are not like either very new or just straight up, or just don't really need one. I would say, like, okay, as far as Towa goes, like, Towa is a unit that could have used an exclusive, but why is it so underpowered? Because Towa isn't even a popular character. Like, Hilda, at least with Hilda, I kind of get it. It's like, okay, they didn't want to buff Hilda even more, because Hilda is still probably the best tank in the game.
Yeah.
But with Towa, it's like, Towa was kind of a niche pick to begin with, so it's kind of weird they didn't give her something way better than this. I kind of thought they would have. But yeah, that's what they went with. It's kind of disappointing, but can't do anything about it now. I'm disappointed.
Yeah, my day has been ruined.
Oh, I didn't. Okay, so I didn't mention this before, but like, there's some notable reruns on the Chinese server for this particular month. So they actually reran Yu Yu Hakusho. We mentioned it a little bit last time. Yu Yu Hakusho got reran this month, this month meaning February.
Yes.
On China. So Yeah, I mean, Yu Yu Hakusho, like, it is kind of a surprise because, I mean, I don't know how much of this is just hearsay, but a lot of people kept saying, like, Yu Yu Hakusho has all kinds of, like, rights issues with not only coming to global, but just, like, in general trying to negotiate with the IP holder is kind of difficult.
Yeah.
So it is cool that they got to run Yu Yu Hakusho again, especially because Yusuke is such an essential character if you want to play Time Faction. So I guess we can just go over Yu Yu Hakusho just real quick. Yusuke, still worth getting just because Time Faction buff, and he's still okay. Like, he's still a pretty good unit. Hiei can't really keep up that well anymore. He's still usable, but yeah, he needs a lot of help. Kurama was kind of bad from the get-go, and he hasn't really improved much over time. Toguro is okay. Like, he's still good in like a rush battle, like a single target rush battle. He's still fine, but he doesn't. I don't know if he can really bust tanks anymore. Like, well, I mean, if he's on Cav class, then he can't. He definitely can't because there's so many Lancers. But you can run him as you can still run him as Demon, and he might be able to bust certain tanks, but it really depends on. What your matchup is. Togoro's 3C is really, really strong because despite the description, like, this isn't something you can figure out from the description, but when you first look at it, you might just think like, oh, it's just assault. But it is actually better than assault because it actually applies the damage to the soldiers as well, which is why it was so strong. It's just one of those weird quirks that you can't figure out unless you test the skill. But yeah, like, Toguro is still a very strong single target attacker. Definitely very, very niche pick because there's plenty of good, like, long range single target attackers that are better than Toguro. So
I'll probably still pull if he comes back because I'm missing him.
Yeah, and Kuwabara, you can get Kuwabara to 6 stars for free when you win this rerun. So there's that.
Free!
Hey, Kuwabara, I make fun of Kuwabara a lot, but, like, considering some of the other characters they've been giving to us for free, Kuwabara is actually looking okay at this point.
Yeah.
But yeah, like, I guess the conclusion here is, like, Yu Yu Hakusho rerun. The only character I would, like, highly recommend people get is Yusuke, just because, like, the Time Faction buff kind of makes him future proof. He's just kind of useful. That's just kind of a useful tool to have, regardless.
Yes, definitely.
Yeah. In addition to Yu Yu Hakusho rerun, they actually reran Wei Tam's banner again, so you can get, if you missed getting Wet Ham the first time, you can get Wet Ham here. So yeah, assuming global follows this, of course.
Okay, so global no longer has to worry about. Yeah, because even if they run it in just the CN, they're probably not gonna not rerun it eventually.
I will say, like, the only one I would be worried about is Yu Yu Hakusho. Like, Yu Yu Hakusho, because, like, everybody knows, like, when it first came to global, like, it kind of got delayed several months.
Yes.
Probably because of, like, rights issues. But Wei Tam is a Langrisser character, so, like, they shouldn't have any trouble running Wei Tam again. So Wei Tam, what is there to say? Like, he's still very, very relevant, very, very powerful unit. Definitely worth getting, and relatively easy to bond and quite good in PvE as well. So there's really no reason to not get Wei Tam. Let's see here. So I said this is a relatively small patch, and it really is because as far as new content goes, on China, they reran the Yu Yu Hakusho event, obviously, so that was like a bunch of free stuff. And they added the main story, Act 3, Chapters 11 through 15. They had a Chinese New Year event because this was February. So there was like a lot of login events and like special packs you could buy and stuff. So there was that. But in terms of actual content, it was actually a pretty, I guess, quote-unquote standard patch. As we can see, like, they're not adding new soldiers anymore. They stopped after the Glacier Elemental and the Fairy Prophets. And I don't know what they're gonna do, because like right now it feels like the patches are a little bit more bare than they used to be, because they're finished with 3Cs for old characters. They're not adding new soldiers anymore. there's basically less stuff for them to like upkeep regularly. And as far as SP heroes go, there actually hasn't been one for 3 months on the China server, so I'm kind of wondering what's going on with that. But there is a new PvE mode coming down the line, but like I said earlier, we'll talk about that in like the next episode or two. So yeah, any thoughts here on this patch? Because like it is kind of empty.
But the Yu Yu Hakusho rerun, nice. Hopefully that does come on time. Woodham, nice. Exclusive. But Oboro, I definitely want to see what he does.
Playoffs is actually happening right now on China server, so we should be seeing. I think we'll see a couple Oboros appear. Azusa, I think, is a relatively common, like somewhat common, because their biggest problem is like their factions, right? Because like Origins is still kind of weak, even though they've added a couple of new Origins characters. I think Origins still needs a little bit of help. Strategic Masters is like whatever. It's like Mythical is still okay. Like Old Landia still sees a fair amount of play. Oboro is a little bit better with the factions because Landius is always around. But yeah, like this is a pretty small patch, so not a lot to talk about this time. That's all we got this time. Any final thoughts you want to finish with here?
Nope, but thank you very much for the Patreon support for the new mic.
Yeah, hopefully, we can keep improving the show even further as we go. We got this shiny new mic for Frontier, and this is the first time we're recording since it came in, so just breaking it in here. And yeah, thanks again to all you guys supporting us. It's just really cool to be doing this. So thanks for everybody for watching as always. We'll see you guys later.
Yep, thank you. Bye.